Our first trip to Japan, and it was all about trains. I'd been waiting to come here since I was a kid, but never had the occasion to actually do it. That is, until someone canceled their trip on the cruise train 7 Stars in Kyushu, and we nabbed their spot. Besides, Kyushu was probably the least talked about of Japan's main islands, at least here, so the idea of meandering through large swaths of it was appealing on its own. Then, Tokyo was on the agenda because why wouldn't it be? And the mega city was all the more momentous, contrasted to the bucolic greenery passing our windows day in and day out. This is the first of 2 videos, this one covering the start of the trip to Fukuoka and the first 2 days on board the 7 Stars, the next one finishing out the 7 Stars journey, wrapping up back in Fukuoka and onwards to Tokyo. So please consider subscribing if you end up enjoying part 1. As with all of my videos, these are all my opinions, or Amanda's. Absolutely none of this is sponsored nor promotional. We paid out of pocket for everything you'll see. There are no direct flights from New York to Fukuoka, and so Tokyo Haneda it was. And flying to Japan for the first time is best done on a national carrier, I figured. I like red-eyes and I like the emptiness of terminals after midnight. Amanda doesn't, and so we were booked on JAL Flight 3, leaving at 1:40 in the morning, or a Friday night as I saw it. Downside, one lounge was open and it was pointless to try. Upside, there was plenty of regular seating and the plane was at the gate. A 4-month-old A350-1000, one of the newest in JAL's fleet with their latest business class product. Apple, pineapple, ginger welcome drink, quite good. Wide open cabin, can't see another passenger, even better. Except Amanda, but even that's optional. Took off half an hour late, but that hardly makes a difference on a 14-hour flight. Someday I'll get around to posting a full review, but suffice to say the flight crew were friendly, efficient, and overall among the best I've encountered. Started off with some olives and mixed nuts, though this fork was questionable. Went with the cheese plate for something light before bed. I think you're supposed to wear this over your clothes, not in place of them. But it was warm in the plane, and quiet too, cruising at 34,000 feet and 73 decibels. I'm 6'4" and a bit over 230 pounds, or a bit under 2 meters and about 105 kilos by the time we landed. But this seat was more than comfortable in bed mode. It didn't feel cramped, even curled up on either of my sides. After about 7.5 hours of sound sleep, dinner was served. Or maybe breakfast. Always hard to tell with long-haul flights across half the time zones. Can't fly a Japanese carrier without going for the washoku option. It was delicious and well presented. Lychee is one of my favorite fruits, so this panna cotta went down really well, though I was completely stuffed after. Which is almost a shame, because they offer anytime a la carte dining and I wanted to try the JAL ramen and curry. But as if barely any time had passed, we were already buckling up for landing. An uneventful touchdown at 4:12 in the morning Japan time. Even got to the gate 20 minutes early. Our flight to Fukuoka was leaving in about 2 hours from the domestic terminal. We'd filled out our customs and immigration forms in advance on Visit Japan Web, so a scan of a QR code and a bus ride got us to Terminal 1 in no time. I was glued to the window for most of the under 2-hour flight. We flew down the spine of Honshu, spying towns nestled among craggy green mountains. Wrong side of the plane for Fujisan, unfortunately. As with most airlines, international business class effectively equates to premium economy on domestic routes, so there's not much to show of the flight other than a tiny glass of juice and some candy. But what more do you need in an hour and a half anyway? Fukuoka Airport seemed to just be coming alive at 8 a.m., and we found the Kuko subway line easily, arriving at Hakata Station and our hotel right across the street within minutes. Getting a digital Suica card was definitely a good idea. So was breakfast at Miyako Hotel Hakata, though that was about 6 hours before check-in. It was over 35 degrees and sunny. Burdened by backpacks not to be left in the care of even the most careful hotel bell staff, we stuck mainly to the malls symbiotically attached to Hakata Station. There's a billion shops and restaurants, so you really could spend a day there anyhow. We even got a preview of the 7 stars in miniature. If you're into trains, Japan is certainly the best place in the world. There's even one for kids on the roof. Above that is a commanding view of Fukuoka, and about 10 stories below and 2 days later is where and when our own train would depart. The Miyako Hotel was worth the wait. Slightly early check-in at 14:30, and the room was bright, clean, and well-appointed. They had a bottle of sparkling wine waiting for us. Even the napkin under the ice bucket was folded with care. Japan is notorious for microscopic capsules and single-occupancy business efficiencies. This was anything but, with a spacious bedroom and sitting area, a large bathroom with separate WC and wet room. Of course, the real attention grabber is the large balcony, complete with waterfall and picnic-like table. And those are real plants. It's not exactly cheap, but coming from New York and later going to Tokyo, it seemed downright reasonable at about $700 per night, including tax, breakfast, and complimentary minibar. Lunch was a quick stop at Family Mart. Lawson's and 7-Eleven came later. A few hours of lazing around the room brought us to the hotel bar, somewhere. An impromptu whiskey tasting was provided by the friendly and enthusiastic bartender, along with a ramen recommendation, Isu, a few blocks away. The line was too long for our stomachs, so we hightailed it back to Hakata Station and Ippudo, a chain restaurant on the 10th floor of Amu Plaza. It was delicious, and I think I even found the same pepper for home use. The weird timing of our flight and a long day led to a good night's sleep and immediate adjustment to the time zone. 7 Stars Kyushu was going to leave on Tuesday, with or without us. This was one extra day in Fukuoka to act as a buffer in case our flight was cancelled or severely delayed, so we had no plans. The Kuko line, that's the airport line, brought us to Ohori Park Station, which, wouldn't you guess, was next to Ohori Park. Lovely, but still brutally hot. Got to see some of it, but mostly stuck to the shaded paths. Dinner at, well, I'll let Google Translate save me the embarrassment.
黒毛和牛博多牛まぶし武蔵
or Musashi for short. We ate a lot of good meals on the trip, but this might just have been my favorite. It's a small restaurant, open kitchen, modern industrial decor, friendly staff, and absolutely amazing beef, especially the premium Wagyu option. At about $18 it was more than worth it. Another stop at the bar and a nice long slumber saw us waking up on the morning of the cruise train. I had received an email from the 7 Stars Kyushu staff saying that the meeting place was going to be at the Miyako. I thought that was a fortuitous coincidence, but no. A crew member was actually waiting just for us in the lobby at the appointed time of 8:20, and she escorted us across the street and straight to the Kinsei Lounge on the 3rd floor of Hakata Station. It was there that we had some drinks, snacks, and pre-departure words from the crew. They also issued us a folder with the itinerary and some other information, as well as a purely ceremonial ticket that the conductor punched right then and there. Quite a souvenir. Following a toast given by a fellow passenger and a couple of photo ops, we were escorted on board the train. Though I'm censoring the faces of the other passengers and crew out of respect for their privacy, I wanted to call out our cabin attendant, who's showing us on board here, was an absolute delight to be around. Her smile was infectious, and she represented the epitome of hospitality and professionalism. Don't get me wrong, all the crew were amazing, but she really looked after us, and her enthusiasm for the job was notable in particular. And here we arrive at our room. The warm wood paneling and sedate lighting make for a cozy atmosphere, but not in a cramped way. By train compartment standards, this is huge, though there are 2 bespoke suites on board that are quite a bit bigger. The bathroom is as large as you'd find in some efficiency hotels. There's a full bidet-style toilet and spacious shower with excellent and unlimited water pressure. They brand this as a cruise train, and that's more apt than any description I could muster. Over the course of 4 days, the train will meander around the island of Kyushu, stopping at towns and cities of various sizes. Just as with a cruise ship, though maybe a river cruise is the better comparison, passengers can alight and wander around for a bit, or participate in tours organized by the train company. Most meals are served on board and are included in the price, as are the activities and all but the very premium beverages. The train itself is a piece of art. I'm probably not doing it justice with my camera work. Meals are also an event, prepared on the train and catered by the chefs of some preeminent restaurants with service to match. For example, lunch our first day on board. Couldn't decide what sake to drink, so they offered us a tasting of the best 3 options. This was my favorite, incidentally. We enjoyed our food while watching the beautiful scenery go by between Hakata and Geta. All of this is served in the lounge car Blue Moon at one end of the train. There are no staggered seatings and no sharing tables with strangers, because this train only has 10 double occupancy compartments, and there are exactly 10 tables of 2. The next car along is the salon car, Jupiter. It contains part of the kitchen, a comfortable sitting area, and the train's onboard tea room. Car 3 has an accessible suite as close as possible to the public facilities. Following that are the onboard gift shop and the private bar, Kazbar. The next 3 cars contain suites identical to ours, and beyond that is Car 7, the Forbidden Car. Forbidden to us because the entire car is taken up by 2 deluxe suites, and only the lucky passengers in those would have reason to venture into that carriage. Then again, we were lucky to be on the train in the first place. Tickets aren't available to book on demand. There's an application process which enters you into a lottery for your chosen dates. We didn't get ours, and were only fortunate enough to be offered a spot due to a cancellation. From what we've heard, only 3% of applicants ultimately end up on the train, though you can sometimes book journeys through third-party travel agencies that are contracted with Japan Railways.
Please be noted that the fall will be seen shortly. Each amount of waterfall looks achieved and attractive. Thank you.
After lunch, passengers were given the option of either visiting the Antayaki pottery village or participating in a Geta making experience on board. Choices had to be made prior to the trip, so we'd picked the pottery village. It was about 33 degrees, 91 Fahrenheit, 80% humidity, and blazingly sunny, so the crew gave us the last-minute opt-out to stay on board in glorious air conditioning. That, and the train was too interesting to leave so soon after boarding. So, while the train sat at Bungamori Station, we made our very own Geta. Then we trundled on to Yufuin to wait for the other passengers who'd gone to the pottery village by bus from Hita. The train makes numerous station stops along the way, often for over an hour, so we got to see some of Hita, Bungomori, and Yufuin, at least the areas around the train stations. As a rail fan, this was very cool. Dinner was created by the chefs at La Vervine restaurant in Yufu, Oita Prefecture. They started us with champagne as we rolled from Yufu to Oita City, then onto a saffron cake from Takeda. Noble scallop and fig with a paprika mousse. Octopus and asparagus with tomato jelly. Herb croûte of flathead fish and garlic sauce. Rice finished beef with grilled shiitake mushroom. Grunt, a fish I'd never had before, over a grilled risotto cake and a prawn consommé. And for dessert, a peach dish with an anniversary message beautifully written in chocolate sauce. We cheated a little, because our anniversary wasn't for another couple of months. We did sneak off the train briefly in Oita City to see the surroundings. They were preparing for the Funai Pachin Festival, which is centered on a parade of Nebuta floats, and from what I've read, has a carnival-like atmosphere with vendors and partying here in the city center. A shame we were too early. When we got back to our room, the chairs had been made up as beds by the staff, and they even laid out a bed in the middle just for Squeak Mouse and bedtime. We woke up for the 7 a.m. breakfast, just leaving Yatsushiro Station heading for Minamata, both in Kumamoto Prefecture. All the meals on the train were beautifully presented and absolutely delicious, expertly made with high-quality ingredients. I'll show our subsequent meals, but won't describe every single dish to save time. Besides, the menus change regularly, possibly with every journey, so you'd be unlikely to be served the same things as we were. Speaking of service, dinner in particular was a formal affair. Not so much that you would have to wear a tuxedo, but it's certainly not casual. Despite the professionalism and attentiveness of the staff in such a fancy atmosphere, they were incredibly personable and friendly. We didn't know what to expect before boarding, but it wasn't stuffy or overbearing in the slightest. The sense of hospitality was amazing, and we felt welcome and relaxed, not just during meals, but throughout the entire trip. The crew seemed to be well tuned to the vibe of each guest, treating some with the serious formality with which they presented themselves, and others with a much more easygoing manner when it fit. As far as our fellow customers went, it was mainly people in their 50s to 80s, and of the 19 of us, there was one single rider, most were Japanese. Aside from us, the other foreigners on board were an Australian couple and a Korean couple. I only bring this up to highlight that the train is incredibly popular amongst Japanese vacationers, but 7 Stars and the crew did an amazing job catering to us by providing English or dual language versions of printed materials, and many crew members did speak English very well, something for which we were grateful. Then it was back on board to head to Ijuin Station, where a bus would be waiting to take us about 25 minutes away to Chin Jukan Kiln in Hyoki, Kagoshima Prefecture. I never thought I'd be impressed by a coach bus, but this was beyond anything I've ever seen, bus-wise. The seats were comfortable and the air conditioning was blissfully cool, but that was the least of it. The attention to detail in the decor was obsessive. Patterns delicately painted on the ceiling, inlaid wood, kumiko latticework backlit by LED panels. The bathroom was sizable and immaculately clean. They flawlessly carried the feel of the train itself onto what could have otherwise been an ordinary coach bus. Numerous members of the train crew accompanied us, providing drinks, cooling towels, and of course umbrellas. Or I suppose they were parasols in this circumstance. The Chin Jukan Kiln was founded over 400 years ago, producing satsuma-ware pottery. We were given a tour of the on-site museum. Then it was into the workshop to watch the potter's display of intricacy as they shaped and carved the clay. 7 Stars arranged for this to be an exclusive tour just for train guests, as is the case with most of their excursions. We were even each given a plate as a souvenir. Then it was back on the bus, but not returning to the train. This night was to be spent at a ryokan, of which we were given 2 options prior to departure. The bus ride was enjoyable, about an hour spent going over the hills and mountains of Kagoshima to wind up at our choice, Miyako Ishiharaso in Kirishima. In the next video, we'll be exploring the ryokan, then get back on board the 7 Stars for another 2 days of activities. After that, it's back to Fukuoka for a night and on to Tokyo to stay at the Aman Hotel with a side trip to Chiba. If the video's already out, tap on the thumbnail here or consider subscribing for updates.